No, it's alright, it's just loading up.
I'd like to introduce you to the Hustings House Band that we have today. Oh, Tom's just sorting out the volume for us.
Where's the box?
There's not.
It's
Channel 1.
Hey, is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you very much to the Hustings House Band who are also doing our sound, I guess. So, my name's Gemma, and I'm one of the small group of people that have organised this Hustings on the Environment. The others you'll see them around doing all the volunteer tasks. And the reason that we wanted to do this is because we feel that this is something which very much affects our town, it affects our country, and it also affects our world. So the purpose of this Hustings is not to be adversarial about this, but for us to work together with whoever is going to be our MP and try and become critical friends to them. And by critical friend, I mean working with them to provide the information that we have, because I know most people in this room are members of various voluntary groups that all do things that have one common purpose. And we might really disagree about the way to do that, but we all definitely understand that the same purpose is trying to make our community and the bigger communities that we're a part of better. And so what I wanted to do is start this Hustings by reading to you what the role of an MP is, because I think this is really important, and sometimes people don't know that. So, and just to qualify that, I am the chair of Bespoke Safer Cycling Group in town. I'm also an anthropologist, which means I study people, and I study people as they do their things. And one of the things that I study is how policy gets made. And I still have to look up what an MP is, because it's really complicated. So, the role of a Member of Parliament is to represent their constituents, including those who did not vote for them or did not vote at all. The UK public elects Members of Parliament to represent their interests and concerns in the House of Commons. MPs consider and can propose new laws as well as raising issues that matter to you in the House. This includes asking government ministers questions about current issues, including those which affect local constituents. And I think it's fair to say, whatever your feelings about climate change or climate justice or anything like that, the one base thing that you can agree on is that the place that you live, the air that you breathe, the food that you eat, the water that you drink or swim in matters to everybody and is of a concern to residents. Now, I think what's really important about this is to perhaps understand that this doesn't actually mean voting or representing what the majority of people think all the time. It also means acting as a representative in the national interest and in the interest of the community, which by Britain you understand as being part of the world. So it means listening to people, talking to them, and getting ideas from the community that you represent. So what we're doing here today is setting up a future conversation with whoever is going to continue to represent us or newly represent us in Parliament. And I'm going to hand over to Scarlett now, who's going to explain the format of this event. And hopefully you'll have quite a good time.
Scarlett McNally. I'm a resident of Eastbourne. I'm a surgeon at DGH. Been here 23 years. And it's so lovely to see so many people here. So I'm sharing this just to see fair play. And it's lovely to see people. It's also lovely to see people that are volunteering to do that really very difficult job of being an MP. And so there'll be questions. We'll hear things we might disagree with, but we're all going to be respectful to each other. The questions have all been sent in by everyone who applied to come today. So they are, although the audience will be asking questions, they are audience questions. So we're going to begin. I'm going to start with an introduction from each candidate with answering a couple of questions. We're then going to go to the questions that have been sent in and have each candidate say their answer, and then there'll be the fun lucky dip round where the questions that didn't get in the top few we'll pick out of a hat, and there'll be a surprise for everyone, and then candidates can choose to answer or not, so that we get through a number of questions. So that will all become clear later. So we're going to start. We've got the microphone. Oh, I've got the microphone. I'm going to send it down that way. Always the end, and then we'll bring it back. So if you're happy to start, what we're asking each candidate to do. Before you
Ask the question, can I just talk about timing?
Yes.
So each candidate is going to have 3 minutes for this question, this introduction, and I'm going to give you 10 seconds warning before your 3 minutes are up. So my watch is going to give you 2 minutes, 50 seconds, and then I'll give you 10 seconds to finish up if you want.
Thank you. Thanks, Oliver. And so each candidate can introduce themselves and say their role, and then answer these 2 questions. Number 1, how will you use your position as MP to tackle the climate and environment crisis? And number 2, what one thing do you think is the most important action you can personally take to combat climate change? So anyone wants me to repeat those, everyone happy? That's part of the 3 minutes. Name, role, your position as MP to tackle climate change, the thing you can personally do. If you're ready to start.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so do you stand up?
You can stand if you want on your head, or you can stay sitting.
I'll stand as long as I can. My name is Mark Ashdown. I'm the candidate for Reform UK. And I would like to say, before I start anything else, I am a full advocate of zero pollution. I hate pollution, nobody likes pollution. I agree with you entirely on that subject. Mostly I'm more concerned about energy security. I don't like being beholden to people like Mr. Putin and the Middle East for our energy. So that's the backbone of my involvement in the renewables energy market. When you say renewables, I like to call it sustainable energy because you can't renew energy because it can't be created or destroyed. So my background is, I've spent a bit of time in the market, as I say. I fully agree with those 2 points, energy security primarily, and pollution, I don't like it. The rest of it is sort of neither here nor there to me. There are opinions on both sides about climate change, and I'd imagine most of this room thinks it is all man-made and we're all going to end up in Armageddon very shortly. That's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned, but we can discuss it. What I would do as an MP, I would have a voice at the head of government, and I would try and steer energy direction in this country in the right direction. And that hasn't happened, and I think we heard Nigel Farage stand up and say things that I consider to be incorrect. So I can put my pennyworths in there, and I do have a fair bit of knowledge on the subject and the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, can I pass the microphone on? You can stand, sit, whatever you like.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm Mike Munson. You might notice I'm standing for the Green Party. And I'm not going to kid you. This is not about me being an MP. There's only one person on this panel who's going to be an MP. And no poll in the past 3 years has had the Tories ahead here. 2 years ago, Josh himself was tweeting that the Lib Dems were 21 points ahead in polls. And the Tories haven't exactly covered themselves in glory since then.
That's not the question, Answer the question.
This election is about how you use your vote. What your hard-fought-for vote is saying. I will continue after this election trying to keep Josh honest, well-informed and more active on the climate and the environment. So there's a fair bit of work to be done there. But it would help if climate and environment had some public support here. If Eastbourne voters showed their strength of feeling on green issues. If I had a vote for every time I'd heard, I'd like to vote green, but we have to vote Lib Dem to get the Tories out, we'd have solved the climate crisis by now. Tories are toast here. Don't let them be a reason why climate and environment still don't get the attention they deserve. The Lib Dems talk more about the Tories than they do about the climate and the environment. The more votes the Green Party get here, the more Josh will have to pay attention to the climate. You can still vote. It's 21 votes.
I'm Sharon.
Yes.
I'd like you to answer the question.
I am answering the question. I am. You're saying that the question was, what will I do as an MP to tackle the climate? And I'm saying, listen.
So you answered that one, and the second one. Now, the second one is the one thing you think is action.
Yes, and I'm going to do that. I've got 3 minutes. What's no, because everybody's interrupting.
I'm going to take chair's action.
I've told this, and it's 3 minutes.
Can I stop?
I've
Stop
told
clapping.
this, and it's 3 minutes.
I'm taking this for a minute. I'm taking chair's action. No, I'm taking chair's action. We have 6 people who are standing to be MP of this town. We want to hear them. We don't want to hear dismissing of other people's policies and so forth. We want to hear what you will do, because that's what we've asked. I'd like to take chair's action and give you 30 seconds to answer what is the one thing you think is most important you can personally take to tackle climate change. Thank you.
The answers to climate change are political, not personal. Preoccupation with personal climate action is playing into the hands of those who don't want the problem solved. Households and individuals cannot be expected to be held responsible, especially the hard-pressed. We need system change, not climate change. Where we are now with the climate transition, the only way we'll stay under 1.5 degrees of warming is through major policy frameworks to deliver green industries of the future and green industries of the present, like those being taught in Eastbourne College. By the way, Eastbourne has one of the lowest percentages of sustainable industry in the country.
Thank you.
We need regulation for a just transition from oil and gas to net zero.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Move on. So you will have 30 seconds, and those are the two questions we're asking you. Oh, sorry. I am corrected.
Hello, should we all start again?
Thank you.
So my name is Paul Richards. I'm the Labour and Co-op candidate in this election, and I live in the old town of Eastbourne. We moved down from London about 15 years ago. I've been boring everyone for the last couple of months about my amazing health journey I've been on, right, which has involved me losing an awful lot of weight. And one of my challenges was to do a parachute jump. So I did a parachute jump about 3 weeks ago, age 56. Quite bold. And lots of things go through your mind, as you might imagine, terror being the main one. But as I was looking down on the earth from 12,000 feet, contemplating my own existence, but also the scene from London to the coast, the hills, the towns, it kind of, I feel a little bit, I feel like I know how those astronauts felt when they look back at the Earth from the moon and just realise what a beautiful, beautiful place this is. And, you know, the environment is not just that very local feeling, it is that global feeling, that feeling that we're all part of something much bigger than the whole. That's the feeling I have, which I wanted to just share with you. I've been in politics for 40 years. I work in Parliament. One of my first jobs was the advisor to the Shadow Secretary of State for Environmental Protection. Before the 92 election, I was a special advisor in government, working for 3 different departments: health, cabinet office, and community. So I've been intimately involved in the policy side of these things for an awfully long time. And I belong to an organisation called CERAP, the Socialist Environment Resources Association, founded the same year as the Green Party, but by socialists who thought it was important to use the power of the state to try and get things done on the environment. And the Co-op Party, of course, who sponsored me, who were founded even earlier in the 1840s, who wanted to have unadulterated food, they wanted local ownership of the land, of community assets, and all the things that we're going to have to deliver to stop climate change. There are people on this panel who don't think there is a climate crisis. I'm telling you there is. It's real, it's happening right now. And so we need to change the government to do something about that. So to the questions that we were put, what would I do? If I'm elected as a Labour and Co-op MP, I would be voting through legislation in the first session, starting after the election, to do all kinds of things on the environment, which we are going to talk about this evening. So practical measures to tackle the crisis. And what do I personally think I should do? Well, it's a question of leadership. I think that public figures should model good behaviour. They should show through their own behaviours that local change is possible, and to work with local groups and to actually make those arguments locally too. So as an MP, I would want to vote through laws, but also show locally what could change. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. It's really good to be here. Caroline Ansell, your Conservative candidate for this next election, seeking re-election so that I can make good on the £1 billion of investment that has been pledged to our town, which includes the new hospital. I've lived in Eastbourne around 40 years, but my parents are actually Scottish. My eldest sister met a man at university from Eastbourne. They married and settled. My second sister married the best man, also from Eastbourne, and so the migration continued. Now 4 generations of my family live in this beautiful town of ours, from 0 to 92, so I couldn't be more invested in its future. I went into politics on the back of a life-changing, life-saving experience for my little boy who had a shock diagnosis of a brain tumour. And I simply wanted to give something back. I'm answering the question. I'm introducing myself. I simply wanted to give something back, and that hasn't changed to this day. I served on the local council for 5 years. I was Eastbourne's first woman MP when I was elected in 2015, and I've served now for 7 years. But teaching is my profession. What will I do to use the position of MP to tackle the climate and environment crisis? Well, pick up where I left off. 1, a guiding principle for me will be to work collaboratively, as I hope I've demonstrated these last years working with local groups who all have the shared values and shared purpose to see this a better place. Use every lever of government. So that is, I served on the Education Select Committee. I raised parliamentary questions on shipping emissions and solar initiatives, met with ministers to talk about food production, and led debates on the circular economy, so to address waste, particularly food waste. And in very specific terms, I've confined myself to 10 of the active projects that I am midway through, that I will pick up again should I be fortunate enough to be returned as Eastbourne's Member of Parliament. The first, this month I was due to present a petition by Plastic Free Eastbourne to make the case for biomass fuels. So I will pledge to take that back with me and knock on that big black door, no matter who opens it and who might be on the other side. Rampion. I'm committed to that expansion of Rampion to see that offshore wind. I'm committed to solar development in our town. I partnered with OHM to engage with businesses, most particularly to build rooftop solar. I've been exploring geothermal with the hospital, with St Wilfrid's. There's actually good potential there in Eastbourne for us to develop that. I'm committed to honouring the Blue Heart recommendations, and that's around surface water. Seek help the Environment Agency, the bus corridor improvements that we need, and also the GCSE on natural history.
Good evening. Ian Garbutt's the name, and I am the UK Independence Party candidate for Eastbourne. I've lived in Eastbourne now 36 years, last Monday, and I have seen a decline to a certain extent. Now, I was surprised when I got the invite to come here, because any of you who've looked at our National Manifesto might see that we actually oppose net zero. We oppose net zero because it is too costly. And when you look at the way we have implemented net zero, it's cost every single one of you in this room 20% tax on your gas and electric bill. That is something that is unsustainable. And in fact, wind farms are being subsidised. And in 2022, which is the last year that I have the full figures for, they were paying out £100 million a month for the wind farmers to switch off generation when there was excess generation into the national grid. And the problem is that the national grid cannot cope with the irregular distribution. We do need to be self-sufficient in energy. And what I get dismayed at is when I see the people saying that we shouldn't use any natural gas, we shouldn't actually have any more oil. So what do? We stock our own natural gas, where we've got 100 years plus of known resources, and we import it from the continent. That doesn't make sense to me. Take Tata Steel down in Port Talbot. It was too expensive for them because of their electricity costs to actually manufacture steel, prime quality steel. So Tata Steel now make that in India, using coal-fired power stations. They then put it on a ship, which comes halfway around the world, burning the dirtiest fuel known to man, for the steel that we need. And these are the sort of policies that I find don't quite add up. And by following net zero the way we do globally is something that I would push to stop. Thank you very much for listening. And over to Josh, who's already had a presentation.
Well, good evening, one and all. My name's Josh Badarindi, standing to be our next Liberal Democrat Member of Parliament. And I want to start by touching on one of the comments that was made earlier. Not one person on this panel has received one vote at this stage in the election. Every single candidate here needs to work, pull out all the stops to earn the trust of folks in this room and beyond. And anyone who suggests otherwise, anyone who suggests that this election is already won, is taking people for granted. And that is exactly one of the challenges that exists in our political system at large, and we cannot let that continue by entrenching that tonight. But if I'm to introduce myself and start, I'm an Eastbourne boy, born and bred. I went to Cavendish School. One of my former supply teachers is on this very panel. And I had some tricky patches in my childhood growing up, but I had amazing teachers who inspired me. I had scout leaders who challenged me. I had local businesses in our town who backed me. And it was because of our town rallying around in the way that we all know it does best that I was able to do a lot of the things with my life that I wanted to do, to create opportunity for folks like me. And I'm determined to give back to the town that made me determined that those same opportunities are available to other people across our town too. But that will not be possible if we do not address the climate and environment crisis. Because frankly, folks, there will not be a town if we do not pull out all of the stops to address it. So I'll move on to the next question. What have I done so far to play my part? Well, one of the things is I used to run a social enterprise that trained employed ex-offenders to do a particular thing, repairing smashed smartphone screens. Why? Because one of the things that did is it helped people to reuse their technology, reduce wastage, reduce consumption, and with it, reduce the emissions that come from production of technology and the distribution of it. A clear example of one of my contributions to reducing the globe's carbon footprint. Another thing is working for the School for Social Entrepreneurs, where I trained and invested in lots of environmental and climate startups to support us to reduce, again, the globe's carbon footprint. What would I do as our Member of Parliament? Well, number one, to put into law a piece of legislation that would bring carbon neutrality, or net zero even, by 2045. 2050 is too late, and we don't have time to lose. And critically, let's look at our environment crisis. I think one of the biggest challenges facing our environment is raw sewage being dumped in the sea by Southern Water, enabled by this government, and we need to tackle it as soon as possible. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone. We're moving into the questions now. Are we going to have a musical interview?
Yes. Number one.
Number one. Bicycle race song. So the first question, and I'm going to do it in a slightly random order, keep you moving. The first question is, Eastbourne has the highest number of short car journeys in the southeast and is one of the worst towns for PM 2.5 particulate air pollution. How will you work on overcoming the local barriers to sustainable, affordable transport and active travel? I'm going to start. I'm going to start, Debbie.
I think the thing that an effective MP can do is they have very convening power in a town like this, and they can bring together all kinds of different resources. They don't have, we had the definition earlier of what an MP does, they don't have actual power at all, do they? But they have great influence. And I think you can do a lot in a town like this to actually bring those different resources together. And I would want to see a sustainable balance of transport, particularly with an emphasis on public transport, so that you can get the buses, the cycling, the walking, and other forms of transport united into a system. Because I think what the town suffers from is that it hasn't got that holistic view to moving around, and that's why people are jumping in their car. cars because they think that's the fastest way to get somewhere, but it isn't often. And often it's much better to walk, and it's much better for health to walk as well, isn't it? And it cuts some of the other issues as well. So I just think there needs to be that joined up approach, and at the moment there just really isn't. Having said that though, it must be balanced with the needs of the local economy too, and also the state of the town. I mean, if you walk through the centre of Eastbourne, it's not necessarily a very welcoming place often. It does feel a bit intimidating. Lots of the crown jewels are boarded up. And I think there's crazy things you can do with things like the Debenham site with a community right to buy that Labour is talking about, where you can turn that over to community use. And so people will want to walk into town because there's something there that they can come and see. At the moment, as you know, it's blighted in that middle there. And so there's, like I say, a creative approach, a reimagining of what a town is, thinking strongly about all the different ways to integrate transport, using the convening power of a Member of Parliament who really cares and gets on with the job, and backs up by a government, which is then bringing in the legislation to help them do that. I think if you get all of those layers in the right way, then you can cut down car journeys.
Thank you very much. I was just struck there, and I'd just like to take a moment to congratulate Ian, who have had that really powerful convening role and brought people together, including MPs and the attraction of ministers too. So a great deal of that work has gone on. One of the other things an effective MP can do is to make the case for investment and unlocking investment for change. Excuse me. And most particularly, that investment has taken the form of bus improvement work. Over £40 million was dedicated to East Sussex County Council to look to encourage more passengers, so there's more reliable and more frequent services. They're looking to see how they can reduce congestion. Some of these proposals have been very, very difficult to land because, of course, there is always choice, there's compromise. So I've worked really closely with local businesses to see how we can unlock that seaside corridor, which is absolutely pivotal to those bus services in the town. There's also been really important investment during the life of this Parliament, 3 billion in fact, in active travel. But most importantly and most locally, we have now a £20 million Towns Fund. That and the spend around that is going to be driven wholly by local people and local priorities. And one of the key measures in that can be focused around public transport, because the reality is Eastbourne, although I see it as beautiful and a huge an important future ahead, it is very car dependent, it is very constrained, and congestion is a real issue for us. So we do need to unlock more cycling and more walking. And so one of the schemes that we've battled long is to unlock seafront cycling, but we've never managed to get a scheme where people could rally around it. But that doesn't mean we should give up as an opportunity with the Environment Agency work.
Thank you.
Well, the thing I noticed tonight, I mean, we can talk and talk, but I noticed tonight arriving here, I couldn't park. So what do? I drive around. I drive around a number of streets, trying to find somewhere to park. Now, that doesn't sound like a very good idea from a pollution point of view. Eventually I found somewhere. One of my suggestions would be to take up some of the double yellow lines and single yellow lines. Because when people do come to this town, really they want to park, not just drive around polluting the atmosphere. Years ago, there were good ideas over yellow lines. Because fire engines and vehicles couldn't get around corners. And then, of course, mission creep crept in, and we had blue lines, red lines, single red lines. Well, I don't know if you get them, but London gets a lot of them. And I'll actually look at taking up some of them. Of course, the people who have the job to put lines down aren't going to sack themselves, so they'll look for more places to put lines down. I'd make it more user-friendly for somebody coming into the town to park. I find it strange that we have a major pollution problem in Eastbourne. I really do. We've got the coast, we're on the coast, the Atlantic's blowing across. I mean, compared to other towns in the country, I really would find that hard to take on board. What you could do also is you could have some small EVs. Now, EVs aren't very environmentally friendly. We all know that. Because you've seen the pictures of kids digging up lithium and cobalt and all the other things. But there is a case for EVs, and I'm not against them, especially small ones on short stop-and-start missions. No one's mentioned we have an ageing population. So, unless you've got some sort of policy to get the ageing population on bicycles to come into town and then do their shopping and take it home with them, I think we should be thinking more towards the ageing population. Thank you.
So the question was on barriers to sustainable, affordable transport and active travel. Well, here we're talking about walking, we're talking about cycling, we're talking about buses, we're talking about trains. One of the solutions to spending ages driving around trying to park is to get public transport, or indeed to walk here. I walked here this evening, it's a gorgeous evening, and I'd highly recommend it. In terms of cycling infrastructure in Eastbourne is much, much poorer than it ought to be. I used to cycle around town. I don't think it's safe. In fact, I remember at the Sustainable Transport Summit, Jem stood up and said something to the effect of, I'm taking my life into my own hands sometimes when I'm cycling around. If you look at Crash Map, put in the postcode where you live or where you go to work, and you can see that there are so many fatalities or accidents, serious and minor, that involve cyclists. So we need to see more investment in our cycling infrastructure. East Sussex County Council, run by the Conservatives, have massively lagged on this. We need them to pull the finger out. Another real danger to cyclists, but also to other road users, is the state of our roads in terms of the potholes. Here, there and everywhere. It's like a golf course driving around our town, whether on a bike or on another vehicle. And we need the County Council to take that seriously. Often you get a pothole that's filled in one place, there's another pothole right next to it, and they completely miss it out. It's a waste of our money, and the County Council needs to get on top of it. In terms of trains, our train services are horrifically unreliable, and this is having a detrimental impact on people's ability to travel green, but also on our ability to bring investment into our town. So I believe that the government should have greater powers to sack and sanction rail operators like Southern Rail that aren't delivering for our towns. We get more people on train transport.
I'll just raise a point. There's a few people trying to video this for YouTube. And if you hold the microphone right close to your mouth, it gets very boomy. If you hold it just above the middle chin, then you get a nice tone coming out of the
Is that better?
Yes, that's much better, thank you.
Okay. I do agree with some of what's been said tonight. I used to cycle, but I don't feel safe on a bike anymore. There's too many cars, there's too many potholes, and I actually fear for my life. So my bike hasn't been out of the garage now for 12 months. I do accept that I tend to drive more than I perhaps should, though I do try and do 10,000 steps a day in the summer when the weather permits. But one of the things that I noticed on the way here, I live in Langley, and I went to pick up a colleague who's here, who lives up in Leeds, and from Langley roundabout, right down to the southern centre, right along the seafront as far as the pier, I was following a double-decker bus until it pulled in. When I went past, I couldn't see that there was anybody on it. It hadn't stopped all that way, but it was belching out smoke. Now, why are we, and then after I picked Colin up to drive down here from Leeds, we then saw a single-decker bus belching smoke, and there appeared to be nobody on that bus either. So, I do agree that a better bus service is required, but the bus service we have at the moment is not fit for purpose and is actually causing more pollution than Euro 6 compliant cars driving into town. The other thing I would like to raise is seaside. The buses don't pull in as to a lay-by as they used to, they park out, and all the cars pile up behind with their engines running. More pollution.
Our transport choices account for about a quarter of UK carbon emissions. If there's a war on cars, the people and planet are losing it. More attention needs to be placed on the 27% of Eastbourne households that don't have access to a car. The noise made about potholes is understandable, but have you seen the state of our pavements? They're not conducive to elderly and disabled travel. First of all, we need to engage all sectors in promotional events and activities. The council needs to build the walking festival, Kidical Mass, car-free day into a cohesive event with cycle road racing, something to rival Airborne. We need public information. Tyre particulates and brake dust cost the UK economy £20 billion a year, contributing to 40,000 deaths. So let's use the DGH and GP surgeries to promote this. Our town slogan, after all, is breathe it in. On cycling and walking, we need to invest £2.5 billion a year in new cycle paths and cycleways and footpaths. And we need to adopt Active Travel England's aim of 50% of trips in Eastbourne to be walked, wheeled or cycled by 2030. On buses, we need to incentivise public transport. I will push for local authority control and proper funding for bus services so a £1 fare can take you anywhere in Eastbourne. We need to increase annual subsidies for rail and bus travel to make them reliable, frequent, accessible and affordable for all, including free bus travel for under 18s. And we need to give buses priority to make them the swifter option for travel.
We're going to have a musical interlude. Thank you. And thank all of you for keeping calm and listening, because we often hang out in groups of people that agree with us, and actually I think you learn more by hearing what other people are thinking and what other people are going through. So thank you for listening. And so the next question is on energy. So the question, and again I'm going to do random picking people for 2 minutes each. What solutions? I don't think this what solutions do you propose?
I don't think it's on.
I'm going to stick to this. What solutions do you propose to increase the number of solar panels and other renewable energy solutions in the town? So I'm going to start in the middle here.
Well, I wouldn't. That's the simple answer, because what good are solar panels in the winter when it's dark between the hours of 4 and 7? Now, that doesn't mean to say that I'm totally opposed to solar panels. I actually have solar panels on the roof of my house, and I've had them since 2014. and when the sun's shining, they actually create solar that goes to the grid, but it means that I can run my hot water system, my washing machine, my tumble dryer if that's used rather than go on the washing machine. And I would encourage all of you that have the ability to have solar panels on your roof to have that. But I think solar panel farms complete waste of money. I know you're the only one who'd agree.
It may come as no surprise that I don't. The Green Party is committed to the energy sector being under local democratic control. Government will have failed in the infrastructure for sustainable energy generation if it is primarily in corporate private hands. We will push for a minimum threshold of community ownership in onshore energy infrastructure, the removal of regulatory barriers to community energy, and investment in community energy by regional investment banks. There are existing proposals for a large solar farm in Eastbourne, and the developers, low carbon, are open to community investment involvement. Eastbourne Borough Council should make low carbon responsible for ensuring and facilitating this to happen as part of their planning consent. The Green Party will support wind farm development, mostly offshore, to provide 70% of our energy by 2030. We will rapidly expand capacity for electricity storage for when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. We will support the rooftop solar revolution on all new homes, provide incentives like green mortgages, installation grants, and low VAT on green products. We will work to replace leasehold arrangements on properties so that rooftop solar can be introduced as part of commonhold agreements. Crucially, our approach will be to give the sector the confidence to invest and innovate that comes from long-term predictability. The Crown Estate will be brought into public ownership and should open more coastal waters for offshore wind and marine energy. We will end all subsidies to the oils and gas industries and cancel all recently issued fossil fuel licences such as Rosebank, and we will phase out nuclear.
Thank you very much. So solar energy and renewable energy. Well, first of all, I think that we need to see a revolution in rooftop solar. It's a missed opportunity not to capitalise on it to the degree so far. The cost of those solar panels, those photovoltaic panels, has gone down massively over the last decade, about a tenth of the cost before. So there's a real opportunity to be able to roll this out. And what Liberal Democrats are calling for, in fact, is that on any new homes or indeed non-domestic buildings that are built, to require that solar panels are on top of them, so that the energy can be stored in battery forms, so that it can be saved for the winter when it's not always sunny, but also so that energy can be sold back into the grid and actually make some money for folks who have those. But even if we did cover all of the square footage of, say, all our commercial square footage in Eastbourne with solar panels, we would not be going far enough to reach net zero. And so there is a need to look at how to generate solar from other sources. There is a proposal for a new solar farm in Eastbourne Park, and there is some controversy around it. My view is that my support for that is conditional on that energy being able to be used by local people, for example, to power our social housing stock. Secondly, that the jobs that are involved in the creation and maintenance of that solar farm go local as far as possible. And thirdly, that there's a fair community benefit fund, so the wealth that's generated from that solar farm is invested back in our town. But also, it's no good investing all of this stuff in renewable energy and having homes that aren't energy efficient, so we lose so much of that power. And so the Liberal Democrats are calling for retrofitting of our homes, particularly for those from low incomes, for free, which is all costed in our
Thank you. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but you were playing Here Comes the Sun. Just a coincidence? Very good. Well, there's a person called Elon Musk, you might have heard of him, and there's a massive nuclear fusion reactor that we look at every day. It's up in the sky, it's 93 million miles away, and that, across the planet, can provide all the energy we need. So I do find myself agreeing with Josh. It's very important that we do use rooftops for solar generation, and like you said, we've got battery backup now, so we can use them through the night, and that's made a huge difference in the last 10 years. Incidentally, I just have to have a little niggle at the Greens, because when I was in the industry, less than 1% of our customers were green. Less than 1%. Most people were doing it for financial benefit. I wouldn't put them on the land. If you've got some land, I wouldn't do that. Because we need land, and we have very short memories, but we had 2 world wars that show that up. We do not have enough land in this country to feed the people. We had to bring in ships from the United States, and lots of people lost their lives because the Germans decided they wanted to sink them. So I wouldn't put anything on the land. It is more expensive to put wind farms out at sea. It's probably 4 times more expensive, and there's an argument that they won't probably pay for themselves in 30 years, but that's what I would do anyway. At the end of the day, you have to make a choice. You need an energy mix in this country. It's not about chitty chat. You have to make a choice, and that's what I would go along with. Education, education, education. Someone said that once, and you need to educate the people that the things have changed on rooftops with solar panels, PV and thermal, and it is now a very good option. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll just touch on that commercial solar farm by the hospital. And I think what's really important, if that stands a chance of coming forward, is that there is that local buy-in and there is that local return, and that there are ways actually of constructing this in more aesthetically pleasing, beautiful ways, and there are ways in which we can increase the biodiversity gain on this particular site. We've committed to protecting the best agricultural land for food production, because that's really important for food security. But in Eastbourne, the sunniest town in the UK, where the win is our rooftops and car parks. And the hospital has shown the way. With a £26 million decarbonisation grant from the government, the hospital now is through its solar rooftop on the staff car park, so nestled at the back. You might not see it's the biggest solar array for just miles and miles and miles. They now have the capacity with heat pumps to produce 50% of the hospital's energy needs. That's the power of harnessing solar. So they've shown the way. We have other retail parks where there is that potential for the car park top. Sovereign is in my frame, most particularly there. But also the rooftops. And I worked with OHM, and they did the most incredible work mapping all the warehouses, those industrial estates in Eastbourne. We have hectares. And on one occasion, I got to go up with some of the apprentices that are training at our local hub, because we need these sort of skills for the future. And you could just see the potential before you. So OHM are doing really important work that I'm backing to demonstrate to businesses the kind of return that they could make to encourage that much bigger uptake. In our manifesto, there is for every household will qualify an energy efficiency voucher scheme. And also there's £1 million for community energy funds. I'm working with Power for People.
Thank you very much. We're at an inflection point in our politics, I think, in the UK, and it's a really, I've lived through a couple of these in my life, but this is a really interesting moment. One of 2 things is going to happen. We're going to wake up on the 5th of July. Rishi Sunak is walking down Downing Street. He's celebrating his victory. Tories have got another 5 years, and Caroline's plan will be put into place. You'll be doing national service, and various other things will be happening. Or we'll wake up with a Labour government in office, and we don't know which of those is going to be. But if it is the Labour government, I really would recommend you reading the manifesto, because on page 47 there is the whole piece there around how we're going to get more solar energy as part of a mix of energy. And one of the things we're looking at and will introduce, if granted the opportunity to serve, is the Great British Energy, a new organisation to challenge the broken market and to release money that we'll raise through windfall taxes on the oil and gas companies and put that money into local energy schemes, including solar. And the piece actually says, partner with local councils, co-ops and other organisations for wind, solar, hydroponics and other renewables. So there's a genuine prospect. We're about to go through this. This is all a little bit hypothetical, but I'm telling you that on that Friday there might well be a government in place that will want to unleash the incredible power of solar energy alongside the other forms of renewables too, and get a genuine change in direction after 14 years. It's a really, really exciting prospect. So, like I say, read the manifesto, have a look. It's available online. See if it's the sort of thing you think you might want to wake up to on the 5th of July, and that King's speech coming in with that bill to tackle the environmental crisis. It'll be there in real life and in those first days afterwards. That's what's on offer in this election.
Thank you everyone for your answers to the questions too. And we now have another musical interlude. Thank you. Beaches, and again I'm going to randomly pick candidates to spend 2 minutes answering this. Question is, what needs to be done to ensure that Eastbourne, as a tourist town, has clean and safe beaches, sea and rivers? I'm going to go.
Thank you. We rely on the environment for air, water and food, and mental well-being. It's all interconnected, whether it is whatever is in the soil runs into the rivers. And our sewers apparently run into them as well. Greens would introduce a Rights of Nature Act to restore soil health, water purity and protect pollinators. It will promote regenerative farming and tighten up on pesticides, prevent agricultural runoff and sewage pollution. A Climate and Nature Act overarching these two areas would be based on science. We would introduce a Clean Air Act, protect Greenbelt, national landscapes and SSSIs so vital for Eastbourne's tourism. Water privatisation has been an unmitigated disaster. We currently pay a third of our bills just to pay the interest on the debts that they've wrapped up. Investors in these monopolies have risked nothing and have profited much. They need to be brought back into public hands. No one should be able to profit from an essential public utility. Southern Water recently applied to Ofwat to increase your bills by 72%. No amount of tinkering with this model, changing the regulator, etc. No one's ever prosecuted. None of the bank CEOs were prosecuted. No one at the post office. Has anyone ever been prosecuted for the PPE procurement scandals? It needs to be brought back into public hands. Someone profits, other foreign owners, usually, and you pay. Greens will set aside 30% of our land and seas by 2030, in which nature will receive the highest priority and protection. Only 5% of our land is currently covered in this way.
was the Environment Act, which in this last Parliament, world-class piece of legislation that the Labour Party has committed to enacting should they be elected. So I think perhaps there's a seal of approval there. But what needs to be done in Eastbourne? Well, I can tell you what's already been done by the government on water quality. That is monitoring. We moved monitoring in these last years from 7% to 100%. That's why we know we have the issue that we are to deal with. That's the truth. There is new legislation with tough standards, binding targets. There is enforcement. There is criminal liability. All of these things are already in play. Locally, what is so important for us in Eastbourne, because our water quality is good. And as a tourist town, and that was one of the things that was put into question, as a tourist town, the sea is our #1 asset. So my dismay when our local council put out that our bathing waters were a tsunami of human waste was total and complete. I mean, what a spectacular act of self-harm for our town when our water quality is good. What will see improvement? That is stopping surface water running into the combined Victorian sewer. Stopping surface water. We need to slow it, we need to stop it. And that's why the rollout of those smart water butts on those is so mission critical, including in parks and gardens, in those times of heavy rain, that we can prevent that rush into the system. That's what creates the overflow. And I just want to put the choice to you, because my Liberal Democrat friends would turn off the storm overflows. And the choice there is whatever you've flushed, it's coming right back at you.
Well, we are blessed in Eastbourne to have 94 individual beaches that our town relies on for its tourist economy, for our well-being, and much, much more. I'm a paddleboarder and I love going out on the sea. But you've only got to download the Surfers Against Sewage app or look at Beach Boy to be bombarded by alerts saying that there has been a dump of raw sewage in our sea. And as far as our tourist town is concerned, we need to deal with that. The way of dealing with it isn't by brushing it under the carpet and pretending that it's not a problem. It is by clamping down on these companies that are dumping tons and tons and tons of raw sewage across our seas, our rivers, our lakes, waterways across the country. And so what do we need to do it? Well, first of all, this has become an industry, the water industry, and it should be a service that serves the public. So what Liberal Democrats are calling for is a ban on bonuses for polluting water company executives, and indeed further criminal prosecutions and sanctions for the worst culprits. More than that, we're calling for a sewage tax on polluting water companies to make them pay for the damage that they're doing and to force them to invest in the capacity that they have failed to create over the years. And more than that, we need to restructure these companies. They've done it in other countries across the world. Liberal Democrats are calling to restructure these into public benefit companies, where you write in to their articles of association that not only do they have a responsibility to serve their shareholders, but they have a responsibility to serve the communities that they are serving. Unless we take serious measures like this, we will see further damage to our seas, our rivers, and waterways, and that is not acceptable.
Thank you. Like a lot of people in the town, I was not born here, but I came here to live through choice, and all the places in England I could have lived, I chose Eastbourne. And one of the main reasons, we've got no family here or anything like that, was the sea, was the beach, was the beauty of it and the potential of it. And it is just the most, I said to my kids, most kids do not grow up next to a beach, I tell you. Most kids come here on holiday if they're lucky, maybe with your 40, you'll appreciate it. But it is an incredible asset, and so it's something we have to nurture. Yesterday I met with Fergal Sharkey. Now that may be a name you know or don't know, but he's a water campaigner. He's taken on the water companies and he endorsed me, which was lovely. But he and I were discussing what you can do about the sewage in the city. And Labour's proposal is that you can turn these companies around. You can say to them, if you fail, you will be fined. If you think you're going to get a bonus for failure, you can forget it. And if you break the law, you will be convicted. Simple as that. And this will change that corporate behaviour. And I don't think civil servants running it would make it any better. I think just turning it over to some nationalised monopoly would be any better. I think companies can be made to fulfil their responsibilities and become responsible companies. And that would be the way we'd go. It sounds like that's what the Lib Dems would do too. It is astonishing. I think historians will look back and say, how can an organisation supplying a monopoly to customers who have to use it, delivering a good that falls out of the sky, how could they possibly make losses? How could they possibly get into this kind of debt? It is an absolute head scratcher how these companies manage to mess it up quite so badly as they do. But you do need that really robust regulation. You need that strong government intervention to stop them doing what they're doing. I'm afraid after 14 years, a new bill, is not going to cut it. We need a change in government to do it. But I believe that is something that will happen.
Well, I sort of found myself agreeing with the Labour Party until a bit at the end when we said we've got to vote Labour. We're going to just go round and round in circles if we're not careful. All of this has been done before. Now, after the war, a lot of companies were taken into the state ownership. It didn't work very well when I was a kid in the 70s, and someone decided, let's change it, we'll protect them into private ownership. Now, that was done badly. And it took a few years for that to come out. And that is the problem. It doesn't matter whether this glass of water is done in the private sector or the public sector. In my opinion, it's probably more efficient if it's done in the public sector, because you don't get the efficiencies in the private sector. It's just my opinion. The problem is it's been badly implemented. And there are no consequences. There's no consequences in anywhere. The police force, everywhere, right across the board. Beaches, water, it's all the same. The directors, there's no consequence. They get their paycheck at the end of every month, and whatever happens. Now, also, we've got infrastructure that was based on 56 million people, now probably 70 or possibly more. So it does need to be updated. I don't believe we're going to need to chuck the baby out with the bathwater and go back full circle again and nationalise everything, and then in another 10 years or 20, 30 years privatising again. That's not the answer. It's better implementation. Thank you.
The water companies throughout the whole of this country are a national disgrace. I and our party believe that Ofwat, who are supposed to be regulating them, are powerless. When they do dish out fines for sewage dumping, they are merely a few £1,000s. But meanwhile, all that's happening is that cost is being added to your bills, and they're paying out bonuses to directors and chief executives. They're paying out dividends to shareholders, but not delivering a service. And we would actually ban any dividends and directors' bonuses to any water company until they've had 12 months where they haven't discharged into rivers and seas. That needs to happen. That actually would start to hurt them where it's most. And the answer is not just to allow them to put bills up. That's what we would do. And that's what we are pushing for. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's those questions are the ones that we had in advance. Can we have another musical interlude? Perfect. Did you stretch a bit as well? Get on the dance. That's lovely. So we're moving on to the lucky dip round. So Jem has a hat with questions in, and this is slightly different because each candidate, there'll only be one candidate answering the question, and then we'll move on to another question. But each of the candidates has some papers in front of them that say either I also want to answer. So if they also want to answer, it's very important for them, they ask to answer. Or if they've been given that question and they want to deflect because they want to get the opportunity to answer a different question, then they show up there to deflect. So those are the rules. So the questions are all in the lucky dips.
You need to draw the first one. Come in. Go. That's a bit long. Number 7.
Biased to picking a candidate that I think will answer a particular question in a particular way. For example, I'm going to go along the row. Am I permitted to do that? Super. So I'm going to start at the end with Josh. Or you may deflect if you require. So the question is, Stagecoach had correctly identified that the failure to commit to bus infrastructure, such as Seaside, would result in no central funding for zero-emission buses across the county, in contrast to all our neighbours. Are you concerned that neighbouring areas will increasingly transfer their older, more polluting and less reliable buses here? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the bus service improvement plan was proposed by East Sussex County Council a little while ago. And they embarked on a consultation to see what residents and businesses thought of it. I made some submissions to that consultation. I thought it would be a good idea for the bus service improvements in most parts of town, actually, but particularly in Sovereign Harbour, linking up north and south with a bus for the first time, fantastic. A King's Drive bus lane I supported. That didn't end up going ahead. I got some flack from local residents for it, but I thought it was the right thing. There's only a single yellow line there, and there's a congestion there as well. Where I thought folks needed to go back to the drawing board was on the Seaside bus lane. They embarked on a consultation that local residents and businesses didn't feel was done very well. They didn't get, oh God, that's gone quick. Anyway, I think that local communities, we need to bring them along with us. We need to bring our town along with us when it comes to bus service improvements. That wasn't done. I don't think that the government should have punished East Sussex County Council and our town for it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry to announce it's only 1 minute for these questions to make quick fire. So next. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. Josh is absolutely right. It was an East Sussex County Council issue. They didn't engage with the locality. We needed more community engagement. The bus services improvement plan failed because of that, and we could have had funding for our own electric buses. Instead, West Sussex got them, and we will cast-offs of their old buses churning out and belching that black smoke that Ian was talking about earlier, will get that polluting our air because the consultation wasn't done effectively. We need to consult with residents before we come up with plans. We need to engage with residents in every local authority ward to see how areas can reduce traffic and open them up to the community, and then join those community wards up together into a cohesive plan for Eastbourne.
Also want to answer this one? Okay.
I may regret this because I was hanging out for later questions, but just to set the record straight around consultation, the consultation is still live. The County Council has gone back to local businesses. We've worked over a period of several months to try to find a scheme that can both satisfy the concerns of business, the needs of residents, and that improve bus service. So it is ongoing because I was pretty determined that we would see that £40 million investment by the government to improve bus services, which along with the £2 fare is how we will encourage more passengers, get more frequent services and have that more sustainable travel in town.
No. Thank you.
Or would you propose other solutions?
Thank you. I'm a firm believer in recycling. It's something that we should do as much as possible, and we need to actually educate people on what can be recycled and what can't be recycled. Now, a lot of people put every plastic bag and every type of plastic in their recycling bin. Unfortunately, half of those bits of plastic can't be recycled, and that actually reduces the amount that the council are able to recycle. So education is important, and yes, we do need to do more to encourage it.
And to be fair, the question does say recycling.
Yes. The question as written says recycling.
Do you think recycling is as it should be, or would you propose other solutions?
So, thank you.
So I was answering the question asked.
Thank you. And I see no one also wanting to answer. Splendid. Next question, please.
Number 14.
You're up.
School streets are just one of the ways that our schools can be healthier and safer environments for children. What do you think about this, and what other initiatives do you propose?
I will answer because it has come to me. But actually, the very best way for schools to undertake active travel is driven by the schools themselves, by their pupils, by their parents, by their leadership teams. And I say that with feeling because I'm a teacher and I was a deputy head before, because each school in our town has its own unique set of challenges, and they know how to deliver that. Because the question asks, essentially, what do I think about this? It's really important that we address the school run. Transport, we know, is one of the top issues we do need to address, and combined with that is actually the health and well-being of our children and young people. And walking and cycling to school is a really significant intervention. If we can support them with the means to do so, the culture and climate to do so, I'm 100% behind that, and obviously rode it behind that and managed to get some funding for Langley School to do exactly that.
Yeah, I think this partly goes back to the first question of the air pollution in Eastbourne. And on odd occasions, I have to go into town early, and I find that getting towards any of the schools, there are big 4x4s unloading their children, and the same at 3:15, picking them up again. And I do actually think that parents who live within a mile of the school, unless it's raining or they've got disabilities, should be told, you must walk your children to school.
Oh, and we've got another I want to answer, isn't it? There's a limit on how many I want to answer.
There's three, yeah. I've used 2 of my 3. But I think the question also said, what other things would we introduce? And one of the things that the Green Party would introduce would be 20 miles per hour areas around schools. And if you did that around all the schools in Eastbourne, you pretty much cover about 2/3 of the residential areas. Now, that's what I was saying earlier about consulting with residents about reducing traffic in their areas. Another thing that the Green Party would do would be to make bus travel free for all people who are under the age of 18, which obviously, if we're improving the bus services as well, would make the school run take a lot more cars off the road.
We ready for the next question? You can read it. So the next question, which you may deflect on, I'm just going to read it. There could be 1.2 billion climate refugees by 2050, i.e. the entire populations of 31 countries, with low resilience to the impact of climate change. How do you think this will affect Eastbourne, and how would your party address this?
So I remember quite early in my political advising career, back in the early 90s, attending a briefing at SHAPE, which is the Supreme People's Powers Europe, as I'm sure you know. And at that moment, there was a kind of great buzz around what some older people might remember as being called the peace dividend. We thought there'd be lots of extra money available for public services after the collapse of the wall and the end of the Soviet Union. And what those officials told us stuck with me, which was, well, that's happened, but what's next? There's going to be mass population movement. There's going to be wars fought over resources like water. There's going to be climate change that will wipe out whole arable areas and turn them into deserts, and cities will be on the move. And in the 30 years since, that's been borne out, hasn't it? That is what's happening in our world. So the idea of climate refugees is genuine and real. I think a new government would have a new approach to this. I mean, I would welcome refugees. I don't think we should put up borders.
They used my last one.
That's the last one.
Yeah.
You get 3 each.
I'm using my last one because it's a really important issue. Famine and increasing geopolitical conflict are driving migration. And we propose a significant increase to overseas aid and support to lower income countries to deal with the climate crisis to ensure that as many people as possible can stay in their home countries. We need an end to the hostile environment and an end to minimum income requirements for the spouses of those holding work visas. We need safer routes to sanctuary for those fleeing danger, persecution and war. We need fast and fair asylum assessment processes. We need to end the exploitation of people for profit by working within Europe and going upstream to dismantle the network of traffickers at source. We need to only charge application fees at cost, and we need compassion.
I can't see 1.2 billion people coming here for climate purposes. The people who have come here is because there's a war going on, or they want to come for a better lifestyle, and I don't blame them. What I think we should have is smart immigration. It's basically hypothetical to say that climate change is causing what's happening. What they're doing more likely is they're looking on their mobile phones and they're saying there's a better life over here. I don't blame them for trying to get over here, I really don't. But I think it's a little bit like being on an aeroplane. When you have a problem and the oxygen masks come down, the instructions are you look after yourself first. You put your own oxygen mask on first, and then you look after the people around you. Once we look after ourselves, and we've complained about infrastructure being pushed and stressed, then we can look after other people. And the last thing I'd like to say, £1, if you're going to spend £1, and that's what we're talking about, if you spend £1 on this problem, you're better off spending it in the country where these people are coming from, because it goes a lot further.
Thank you. Oh,
my mum. Oh, no, you can read.
Do you have a refillable water bottle and a keep cup to reduce your reliance on a single-use plastic? And have you downloaded the refill app?
3 questions in there.
Okay, 3 questions. Do I have a refillable water bottle and keep cup? I've got more than one, quite a few. To reduce your reliance on single-use plastic, yes, obviously. And have I downloaded the refill app? Yes, I have.
Lovely.
I should get using these up. So, yes, I have a refillable water bottle. It is yellow. Do I have a keep cup? No, I don't, because I don't really drink tea or coffee so much. And do I have the refill app? No. But while the next question is being asked, I'm going to download it.
Thank you.
Number 17.
Okay, the next question, Most climate experts agree that our current food system is not sustainable. If you're elected as an MP, will you actively support animal farmers to transition to more sustainable forms of land management, such as plant-based crop farming or rewilding? How did you take that? Or deflect? Sorry. Most climate experts agree that our current food system is not sustainable. If you're elected as an MP, will you actively support animal farmers to transition to more sustainable forms of land management, such as plant-based crop farming or rewilding? Thank you. Deflect if you...
I actually have animals on a small farm, a very small farm. When say most climate experts, what they tend to say now is that's the consensus. So what they're actually really doing, if you want to actually go and study this, is you get a room like this, and the people that don't agree with you, you throw them out, and then you get a consensus. That's the people who are left. But yeah, people are already doing this anyway. It's extremely expensive energy-wise, fertilisers. They're actually already carrying on with this, and of course I would encourage it. Is it sustainable? Well, if you look at the experts, they say we need twice the CO2 if we want to sustain life on this planet, because originally we used to have twice as much CO2, and the planet is actually greening. If you look from space, it is actually greening, getting greener. If you're going to feed more people, which eventually will run out, then you're going to need more plants and you're going to need more CO2. So I just thought I'd throw that into the mix as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 3 requests for them to answer. You still want to use up your... Lovely.
I don't know if anyone was at it, but there was a really good dinner discussion at the Hydro last week with the European movement. Was anyone in the European movement apart from me? No? I know you're not down there. But the speaker was a farmer, and she was addressing the question of food security and how you transition into a more sustainable form of British farming. But what was, I'm just going to report this back, okay, don't boo, but she was very firmly of the view that it was Brexit that was causing the trouble, and the fact that we were having to sort of create an American-style factory farming culture in British agriculture, which she said was absolutely totally unlike what we've had before. It has been driven by the fact that we're in this new situation with all these new trade deals, and so I think the answer to some of this is actually better European integration, like I say, don't we? But that was what she was saying. I think there's a lot in that.
Food security needs to be one of the essential things for any government. And what I find bizarre is certainly in Wales, the Welsh Parliament there have told the farmers they've got to turn over 10 to 20% of their land to rewilding. What is that achieving? It's not doing anything for food security. It is simply reducing the amount of food that we grow in this country, and then we rely on imports. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So to the question, supporting that transition, I can tell you that on page 69 of the Liberal Democrat manifesto, there's a commitment to funding independent advice to support farmers to make those transitions. But also I'm particularly interested in food security and food development in other ways as well. So when I was working in my role supporting entrepreneurs, particularly environmental entrepreneurs, there were some really interesting projects around investing in fungus and meat alternatives, culturing in that way, also growing meat from cells and all that kind of stuff. I think it'd be really interesting to look at how we might be able to support the development of the foods that lots of us know and love, but in other ways as well, to get ready for the next generation of farming.
Thank you. Just going to confirm.
Number 11.
Quite the other way this time. So the next question is Eastbourne is one of the very few towns in the southeast that doesn't have a seafront cycle path. What do you propose to do about this?
Well, I think it's a great shame that we're practically the only town on the coast that doesn't have one of these. There are some who argue that that creates a USP, and that's why people come here. No, actually, I think we'll be able to get more people to come to town were we to develop that cycle path. Now, there are a number of pinch points along our seafront that make it challenging, but I'm absolutely convinced that by bringing together local businesses, by bringing together the public, by bringing together cyclists, that we can find a solution. Some say, no, we shouldn't have, say, mixed use along our seafront. Well, we've had the Dotto train, a vehicle running alongside people on foot along our promenade for many, many years, and long may they continue. If we can make shared space work in that way, then I'm convinced we can make shared space work with cyclists along the seafront too.
Oh, thank you very much.
Is there a number on the top of that?
Oh, sorry, it's number 5. Eastbourne has a I'll just give it to you.
Okay, this way. So the question is, Eastbourne has lower than average tree cover. Voluntary groups have been working hard to address this. How will you support them with their efforts?
Yeah, part of the problem is that if you take the boundaries of Eastbourne, it is mostly developed and there isn't a huge amount of space to grow more trees. I do believe in growing trees wherever possible. I only have an average sized garden, but I do have an apple tree and a pear tree that I planted a couple of years ago, and I think people should be encouraged to do that. But you know, we have to have a balance between recreation space and where we grow trees. So it does need encouragement, but it needs careful encouragement.
Lovely. On to the next question.
It used to be biased, but 4.
4. So the next question is, how would you reduce the amount of single-use plastic produced?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. So I think the theme tune for Barbie, when I'm surrounded by Kens, this is my question. I think this is where that cutting-edge research and development it needs to come into play, and some of the innovations around the alternative materials that can be used for all sorts of everyday products. Because single-use plastic is absolutely, in terms of the hierarchy of where we need to bring change, bring transformation, that is it. So how it's produced, well, of course, there's all sorts of different sort of nudge type initiatives, whether it's around funding for different streams, whether it's around helping manufacturers through tax breaks to pivot to different types of packaging. There's a whole range of different levers that can be used, not least actually consumer power. Consumers making the choice to buy those far more environmentally sensitive and sustainable products because then manufacturers follow the money.
I believe it's my last one on this. I think the supermarkets have a big role to play in this. You walk into supermarkets today and all the fruit and veg, well, the majority of it, is pre-packaged. And it also results not only in the use of plastic where it's not required, but it also does end up with food waste. Because if you only want 2 carrots, you have to end up buying a kilo of carrots in a plastic bag, and then they go off before you can use them. So let's go back to brown paper bags. You help yourself and you buy what you want. No more, no less. Thank you.
Give another hour to answer.
I think there's going to be a lot of agreement on this question, which is fantastic. I think my focus, though, is on the multinationals. So when you look at pollution, plastic pollution on beaches across the world, there was a report that came out about 6 weeks ago now that found that 50% of that waste comes from 60 of the world's largest companies. And the number one polluter, the number one source of that plastic is Coca-Cola. So I think that what we need to do is on an international level force the producers of those of that waste to invest in technology and research to pivot to a different kind of material. I know Oliver was doing some work a little while ago looking at biomass plastics and whether there can be more investment in technology of that sort. But until we really push those massive corporates to get a grip of this, it's just going to trickle down and end up on our beaches, and indeed in our water supply when it breaks down into microplastics.
So here we go again, round and round in circles. Does anyone know why plastics were used for packaging fruit and vegetables and used in supermarkets in the first place? Nobody in the room? Some of it back. The reason they were brought in the first place was to reduce waste, because there's a huge amount of waste. And that's what was happening at the time. Everyone's forgot that, or forgotten about it, so here we go full circle again. Do you know what happens to most of your plastic when you recycle it? Where does it go? It goes abroad, most of it, or a lot of it goes to Turkey and India. And do you know what they do with it? Chuck it into the river, and it ends up in the sea. So we need to look it up, go and check it out. We need to address that. And the last thing I wanted to say on the matter was that in my supermarket I can buy carrots singly. Well, you go to. Thank you.
Great. So you've got one more in the book. One more in that. Lovely. Is it probably we can carry on all night? Or do you think you've got the question already?
You asked it.
You can answer it.
You asked it.
Or do we got the numbers?
Yes, it's
insurance on my house in Eastbourne. How would you solve this?
I can't get flood insurance on my house in Eastbourne. How would you solve this?
I'm not going to deflect. How do you solve not getting flood insurance? Well, the Environment Agency organising building our flood defences across Pevensey and Eastbourne. But actually, what we really need to do is to stop climate change. The ice caps are melting, we need to keep oil in the sun, we need to keep gas in the earth, and we need to stop adding to global warming, which is making the seas rise. That's how we get flood insurance.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. You really think that global warming is flooding out houses and you can't get insurance because of that? You really believe that? Okay, how much in the last 100 years, how much of the sea level's risen?
1 inch.
How do you measure it? You're the environmental people.
The scientists have done the research.
Oh, the scientists. Okay, so
Storm damage,
okay.
sanctuaries, they
Well, the best way to manage it is actually in the satellite. Okay, and it's risen by about 7 inches. And if you think that's what's caused the problems, then well, fair play to you, but I don't think it is. Councils are allowed to build on floodplains. There's a lot you can do about it, but blaming the sea level rise is not the answer to this.
Thank you.
Building on floodplains is the whole problem.
We have another item to answer.
As we're on the last question, it's not a policy response, but I would say write to your local member of parliament to come full circle to the start of the Hustings. One of the things that MPs do is advocate for local people because they should be able to access flooding for their property, and we've done all sorts of important work with mortgage providers and the like. So write to the MP.
I'm just going to check everyone feels they've had enough of the minutes. You've used your tickets. No one wants the 1 minute to answer a question that we didn't. Splendid. It's quite warm. We've done very well. Yes. So I'd just like to thank the candidates for putting themselves forward, for volunteering to do this work on behalf of the town and to come here this evening. It's been very interesting listening to everyone's views, hearing what information that changes people's ideas or what stories change people's ideas, and how we could make the town a better place and the country. I'd like to thank Tom and Dave, the band. You've been amazing. I'd like to thank the Eastbourne Blind Society for hosting us. They do welcome donations. It's a lovely space. And the organising committee for organising all of this, because it's been quite a lot of work, and thank you for everything you've done. The event was live streamed, and the recording will remain up. Will that be on the Facebook page, or?
It will be on the Facebook event page and on Eastbourne Solidarity, and then people can just
share it. Perfect, thank you. So please share the recording with your friends and community groups, and please do stay and chat to each other. So that there's the buckets at the back for donations to the Eastbourne Blind Society. Thank you. Please leave quietly to avoid disturbing the neighbours, but do stay and chat and talk to each other. It's lovely to see the community coming together and using this as an opportunity to work out what we really want for ourselves and for each other and for the future. So thank you.